Our first session of the day is entitled Bringing Our Voices Back and will be led by Jane Best, who is a musician on Manitoulin Island. She grew up in Kingston, Toronto, and attending Chalmers United Church in Kingston, and later singing in the junior choir at St. George's United in Toronto. She studied piano through the conservatory and later studied music at U of T part-time. In 1989, her young family moved to Manitoulin Island, where her husband Paul taught at the high school. Jane taught piano and guitar lessons. In the 1990s, Jane directed children's choirs and eventually the senior choir at Lions Memorial United Church. Later, she became the worship musician for All Saints Anglican Church in Gore Bay. In 2006, she started the Manitoulin Community Choir. Jane has been a guider, a scouter, a school music volunteer, and served on the board of the Summer Institute of Music for a number of years. She is an enthusiastic member of the Hymn Society and of SOCHS. Several of her hymns and choir pieces have been published, and she currently helps lead the worship for the Island Community Church. Here then is Jane Best.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Oh, awesome. I didn't push the wrong button. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for giving me your time. And I'll tell you, when Debbie Fingus first spoke to me about sharing, she had heard that I was writing some songs for when choirs come back. And while we are regaining our skills post-COVID. And she asked me to think about the vocal considerations and how I was picking music for this returning time. And so I hope I can answer some of that today. And I hope that you'll enjoy my songs when we start to listen to them. So here I am in this room of dedicated people who all of you know your own church, you know your own choir, you know your own community, and you are the experts where you live. And I'm just going to share part of my COVID story and my music story. So when COVID hit, I don't know what we were thinking. I think we figured we'd be locked down for 2 weeks. We could do this. 2 weeks, we're fine. So the Sunday before our COVID shutdown, my congregation had rented the curling arena, and we were having family fun day. And so we had our little paper songbooks and a few hymn books with us and a keyboard, and we had lunch together in the sort of upstairs gathering room in the curling, and then a bunch of people went down on the ice and had fun, and that was our last in-person church service till 3 weeks ago. So we really thought we went 1 week without church at all, and then the following week, my minister and we decided we'd be brave and plan something on Facebook. And this wasn't a skill that we had. We knew nothing really about how to do it. And so we had all these links to things. And it was another week before we decided we would try anything a little bit more advanced than that. And then eventually, like most of the rest of you, we developed some skills in the areas of how to share at a distance and what to do. Find a way to still be us. Find a way to still have some community and some sense of normalcy in the weirdness. And, you know, at first, when my choir had to shut down, well, that was March, and we generally have a big concert at the end of April. So we thought, oh, well, we're going to be shut down for a few weeks. We'll move the concert. We'll have a June concert. And then I direct a community choir. So we don't meet in the summer. So we won't be starting again till September. It will have been 2 years plus almost a half year. And my my initial sort of, okay, we're fine. We'll put this off a couple of weeks, and then it was like, oh, it's going to be a rough startup in September after 5 months of not singing. And I started to think about how my choir, which is unauditioned, lovely, beautiful people who want to sing, but who aren't necessarily super trained, who maybe don't have huge voices and lots of reading skills. And how do we come back together? It's going to feel a lot like the year we started. My choir started because there already was a community choir here on the island, quite big and quite busy, and they sing some major works sometimes, and they'll sing in German, and they'll tackle things that are Baroque or Renaissance. And it's not really a starting place for people who just want to sing. And so when my community choir started, we started kind of gently, and I was looking for limited range music, songs that wouldn't make us sound bad. And I just had this feeling that coming back, it was going to be the same thing. Because even when you really want to sing, you don't want to sound bad. You don't want to feel like you're the person in the room who shouldn't be there, or you just don't have some of the notes and all of that. So I started to work on some songs for my own choir, and they're kind of used to that. They're very tolerant, they're very kind. They've sung a number of my songs in the past, and I don't think I've ever really had them sing more than one, maybe two of my pieces in a concert at the same season. But I started to look at what we would need, and I started to think, oh, I've looked at what's in my choir library. I've gone back through it quite a lot. You see, we're the kind of singers that for the second half of a concert, we need songs that don't hurt our voices anymore. We need songs that are interesting, exciting to listen to, fun, but songs that have a range that's manageable when we're tired. Perhaps a range that's manageable when we really wish we were sitting down again. And so as I was thinking about what my choir would need, I was thinking we need to regain our ranges. We need to regain our good breathing. We need to regain some stamina. And if your singers are like mine, well, if they've been singing kind of like leaning into their machines or down into their phones or sitting and kind of like instead of your, all right, here we are, I'm going to practice, right? Here I am looking across my music. Well, if you're going to sing sitting down and you're in a comfortable couch and you're going to kind of like, eventually you don't breathe as well and your voice doesn't sound as good. And then we're singing on top of that whirring fan sound from our computers. We may be singing on top of the sound of air purifiers. And if I don't have this on, I'm either doing this or I'm kind of shouting. So all of these things have to go away. We have to feel natural with our real voices again. We have to feel good. So with that in my mind, and with the feeling that even though we have some familiar songs that we love, I don't want to come back and do things poorly. If I ask my favorite people, what do you want to sing when we come back? They're going to say, I want to do River in Judea. If I ask people in my church, well, what do you want to sing? They're going to say, oh, we want to sing How Great Thou Art. We want to sing, and you're talking songs with huge volume and big range, and we're going to do them really badly if we come back with those as our first pieces. And I just personally have this bad feeling that to come back and do that, we are rusty. We're not stupid. We're not deaf. The minute that you know you don't sound good, you don't want to do it anymore. And I want my choir to come back happy, come back comfortable. So, with all of that in mind, I realized that what I was feeling was kind of the urge to write for my choir. And then I spoke with some music friends. I spoke with Mark Runke, who has his whole PhD on helping people who don't think they can sing find joy in their singing voices again. And I spoke with some musician friends. I spent a lot of time talking with Don Duncliffe because we've become friends through Summer Institute. And I kind of worked out some parameters for what that limited range would be. So in my songs, I feel like kind of like playing Scrabble with some of the pieces missing. Um, my sopranos don't go above an E for these songs. My basses are not going below an A unless it's a sort of optional thing. So I made myself some ground rules and I started to write. And then I didn't want to write like only all my own texts because frankly, other people write words better than I do. So I talked with Andrew Donaldson. I talked with Lydia Peterson. I had an email conversation with Mary Louise Bringle. I have a friend named Fred Kreider in the Hymn Society. And I also ended up with a text that Dan Damon allowed me to use and to create a bridge portion for. So I have come at it hoping for some variety. And so, like, before I go any further, we're going to listen to some songs today, but my goal was to make it all accessible and not cost you a lot of money. So, my songs, for my part, are not going to cost anything. You can print PDFs, but there are a few that you must either report to one license as hymn texts, or in two cases, they will require a special license. And you'd have to decide if that's worthwhile to your budget. But my thinking was that if they could be mostly free, then at the moment where you're trying to rebuild your choir's skills and come back sort of joyfully into church singing, you don't also have to take a hit to your budget and replace like tons of music, because these are stepping stones. We're not stuck here. We're going to come back to more increased skills and more singing. So having said all of that, I want to share with you when I shared my idea with Lydia Peterson, I sent her a tune. And COVID was still on, and we were all hurting and feeling impatient, sad. All of us had lost concerts. Some of us know people who were terribly ill or who had died. And she wrote this wonderful, wonderful text, which goes in part, our voices have been silent far too long. Just listening in worship felt so wrong. God's people need to shout their praise, to celebrate God's wondrous ways, to pray, lament, and grieve when things go wrong. God's people need to lift their hearts in song. So I have this choir piece for this song, and Debbie Fingus and her husband very kindly recorded it. And Sartu, I would be ready for us to hear that if we could. And this is audio, this is not a video, so you feel free to close your eyes and listen, or if you printed the PDF, then there we go. So, um, so Are we able to hear this? So here's my written music. And I'm hoping that Sartu will be able to, it could be that.
Sorry, did you hear the sound?
No.
Okay, let me try again.
Thank you.
You have to share the sound as well. There's a button for that.
Okay.
May I say how grateful I am that I don't have to do the technical part of this?
Let me know if
Like-
you can't hear it, okay? I'm going to play it again.
Great. Yay.
Our voices have been silent for too long. Just listening in worship felt so wrong. God's people need to shout their praise, to celebrate God's wondrous ways, to pray, lament, and grieve when things go wrong. God's people need to lift their hearts in song. But though our tongues were still, the Spirit prayed for us in sighs too deep for words stayed close by our side until the night gave way to radiant morning light, and in the storm's retreat the Spirit bade us sing once more, robust and unafraid, with thankful hearts and voices glad and free. We bless the source of rhyme and melody, for love's devoted steady beats that nothing ever can defeat, and pledge anew God's choristers to be in faithful, joyous music ministry.
Thank you, Sartu. Well, that was kind of my my moment for bringing the choir in my mind, bringing the choir back together and thinking about our music ministry together. Now, right now, I don't direct a church choir, but I certainly have. And gee, I'm seeing nice things in the chat. Thank you. What I wanted to say is you've all been outside your job descriptions for the past 2 years. We've all done things that were not planned for. We've all done things that we found difficult. We have a grief that we probably haven't spent enough time grieving. We haven't really voiced our laments. We haven't been together for it. And in the same way that you, as people who sing in a choir in a church or who direct a choir, you are leading. You need to respect your own gift, your own calling, and take time to let just do self-care. Allow yourself to process what these past couple of years have been like. And now that we're starting to get back together, we may be getting back together, but we're not back where we were. We're in a different space where maybe some of us feel older, a lot of us feel tired. And in the same way, your choir, they are bringing you the gift of their time. We talked yesterday about how we sing because we love it. We sing because it feels good. We sing together because it's different and it builds us up. And all of that in a church choir is something that also helps lead worship and helps build up and serve the church. And your choir, as they come back, especially if we've been singing alone at home, we've been alone with our wobbles and our tired voices and our strange hunched over form and our not breathing well. And we maybe don't respect our voices very well. We'd all like to sound like Josh Groban, you know? But your singers need to feel welcome and safe and respected. And there's a thing that we do when we are working on our songs together, where we're working together to lead the worship. And I want to look at just the text of a song. The words are by Ruth Duck, who's a wonderful hymn writer. And this particular song text is called Glory to God, Your Gift of Song. And it's basically a hymn of thanksgiving for the people who lead the worship. I'm not sure under what circumstance I would lead it in church, but I think you could sing it with your choir as an encouragement to them. So I'm just going to read this text, and I don't know, Sartu, if you have it, the PDF. So, glory to God. Your gift of song draws us together as your own. From every nation, tribe, and tongue, your people praise you on your throne. We bring our joy, our hope, our praise. We name our sadness, face our fears. We sing the struggles of our days, and music heals us, dries our tears. We give you thanks for all who lead, pleased to inspire our song and prayer. Their gift of music sows the seed of faithful life and acts of care. Glory to God, you send us forth. Raising our voices, we proclaim our protest, hope, and love for earth, forever singing in your name. And I think what I want to say here is that in our wilderness journey through the time of COVID and in our coming back, there is this sense of struggle. We're not exactly sure quite how to do it all. And it's all going to change. Some of us are singing with masks. Some of us are singing distanced. Some of us are just kind of not sure of our roles right now. And so I want to encourage you, just cherish the gift and acknowledge the gift in your choir. And I think that sense of I'm safe, I'm here, I'm in a place where I'm loved. I can sing even if I don't sound the best that I've ever sounded. These are the beloved voices, and we go forward. So just for a moment, we've been sitting still for a while. Can you all just roll your shoulders like as if we were at choir and we'd been yakking too much? Give yourself like an air angel. You're out in the snow doing a snow angel, except you're not lying down. That's it. Okay. So then just take your hands and let your jaw muscle relax a little bit. And then if you can take your fingers and relax your eyebrows. Your eyes have been working hard. Feel good? Yeah. So I'm having a sip of water. I invite you to hydrate. So the next piece of music that I'm going to look at is called God Can Do Something New. And it's a little look at something out of Isaiah 35, which is sort of one of my go-tos from this time. That rivers in the deserts and highways in the wilderness are kind of God's job. And at the same time, we're in this amazing time of change in the world. Our culture is not the same as before COVID. We've had a lot of awareness of justice issues, a lot of awareness of language, and hi Judy, I see your chat. A lot of awareness of culture issues, justice issues, gender issues, and the landscape is different. And our language will be different, and the hospitality in our song will be different as we come back. And so this particular song, the way that I was working it out, originally, it wasn't a choir piece. And then I thought, well, I can do this for choir, and I had a lot of fun. And I made it a piece with layers. So your congregation will hear different voices. You'll hear the men by themselves, you hear the altos by themselves, and put things together. There's also a clapping pattern. And I don't know how successful or unsuccessful you feel with clapping percussion. But what my choir does is, I've got some never gonna clap people. Never ever, not gonna happen, can't be done. I've got some people who can't share their music because of their focal distance, and that's life. And then I have some people who are willing to clap, but don't take away their music. They're not going to memorize. So in that case, we might have a clapper and a holder. They got to be people who can get along in the same space. And the person who's holding the music has to be a person who can, keep consistent. They're not going to do this. You don't want the music that you're sharing to kind of, dance around too much. So the person who's holding the music might have to stand still. Or you might have music stands, but when my choir sings, there's too much clutter if everybody has a music stand, so it doesn't work. And so what I want to say about this is that if the clapping doesn't work, that's okay. But you can try it. And Debbie and James recorded this, so I'd like to hear it. But I also want to say that I recently heard from Wanda Stride, who's down in Brighton. Her church did this on Palm Sunday, and her choir couldn't do the clapping. She just said nobody could hold the music for each other, wasn't gonna go. So she got the congregation not to do my pattern, but to simply go stomp, clap, stomp, clap. And they did it through the whole song, and I got to hear a clip of it, and I was really happy. So I guess what I'm saying is I like the way that I wrote it, but seriously, if it doesn't work for you, do something else. Haha. Oh boy, I want to read these chats later. Thank you. Debbie, you were saying something about your clapping?
We make music capes. So it's like we attach a piece of string around the top, and then they wear it so that it's on their back for the person behind them.
Oh, that's brilliant. How do you
It's ridiculous, but it works.
How do you make it stay on?
It's a piece of string around their neck. It's like a reverse necklace.
Oh. Oh, I know some people who will like that. And I know some people who dance too much to be the one who wears it. But thank you. Sartu, could we hear this song now?
Can you do something right? New?
That's right. Thank you. Okay, we're seeing it. That's great.
God can make rivers spring up in the dry places. God can make highways appear in the wilderness. God can direct us in new ways of holiness. God can do something new. We know that God can make rivers spring up in the dry places. God can make highways appear in the wilderness. God can direct us in new ways of holiness. can do something new. Help us respect our neighbor. Help us to love. Help us all learn together. Help us to work. Help us to work together. We're praying, hoping for something new. We know that God can make rivers spring up in the dry places. God can make highways appear in the wilderness. God can direct us in new ways of holiness. God can do something new. We know that God can make rivers spring up in the dry places. God can make highways appear in the wilderness. God can direct us in new ways of holiness. God can do something new. When we are tired, steady us. When we are afraid, strengthen us. When we are blind, help us to see, hear, understand. We're praying, hoping for something new. We know that God can make rivers spring up in the dry places. God can make highways appear in the wilderness. God can direct us in new ways of holiness. God can do something new.
So Debbie, thanks again. We are kind of experiencing this bittersweet. It's great to be starting to get back. Might not feel safe to everybody. We have some people who will come back in person. We have some people who won't come back in person. We have some people who won't feel safe for a long time yet. We have the same in our choirs. And in the long period in between, now I know it's been different across Canada. Some places choirs have come back on and off. But in my part of Ontario, it's really been 2 years. And so some people age out, some people move away. And there's a kind of a bittersweet. And when our choirs are together, there has to be a way to sort of acknowledge the changes and acknowledge those feelings. And I didn't really, I haven't been trained in pastoral care. I play the piano, I play guitar, I play a little bit of harp, I sing. So I decided that remembering back to when I was directing church choirs, how I wasn't always comfortable with the thought of leading out in a prayer, especially about something sensitive, if my mind was full of rehearsal details. I want to circle this, I want to remember to say that. So I asked a number of ministers and musicians to give some prayers, if they would, to put in a little collection for choir leaders, or maybe just to give to your choir, so that that experience can be acknowledged in prayer, that we're coming back with rough voices, or we're coming back with feelings of that mixture of grief or joy. And so one of the PDFs that's in my file that at the end of this, I think you're going to get a PDF from me that has all this, is about 8 pages of prayers from various people that you could use with your choir if you so choose. And I'm not suggesting that we can't pray freestyle. I just think sometimes when your mind is full of other stuff, you're not the best choice to do that. So I wanted to say anything that you do that builds up and encourages and creates that positive sense in your choir of care is worth doing. And if you have a way to have a gathering with your choir and your minister and just acknowledge all of those feelings, that's great. And if there's no time in your choir rehearsal for that, or there's no time in your job description for it, well, at least there's a little bit of an idea there. So my friend Fred Kreider, he's a retired United Methodist minister in the States. He sent me a beautiful text which acknowledges both the joys of life and also the days that we can barely cope. And when I first saw his text, I had this kind of little folky tune for it, but I really didn't think that it did what the text needed to do. And so I wrote a quite different tune for it, with a little bit of going back and forth into some flats and back out again. And what I want to say about it is that while we're working with our choirs and we're regaining skills, sometimes what we hear is as important as what we read. Some things on this particular piece of music might look more complicated than they really are, but when your choir feels it, then it won't be complicated. All of this music, my endeavor is to start in the mid-range of people's voices and work a little bit toward the edges, not as a stopping point, but just so people don't feel disincluded. It's really hard if you're used to singing alto, but all the alto parts think that you have really great ease, because I don't. Some of my sopranos don't. And it's really hard if you're just working your way back into singing and there's, here you are as a soprano. Well, there's an essential G. Not going to happen. I have in my choir with maybe 45 people in a wonderful year, I might have 2 people who can sing those high notes. So this song, For the Joy of Life, I sort of looked at, well, what's in the cupboard? You cook with what's available in your cupboard, and so you adjust the recipe if you can. And this particular song, if you have someone who can sing higher, well, there's a little thing that they can add to it. But basically, what you want to do is give the choir something that they can manage. So I'm grateful for Fred Kreider's words. I feel, when you talk about your own faith, you're only speaking for yourself. But when you put song words into someone else's mouth, they better be good and true and worth singing. And so this particular text of Fred's I really like. Sartu, can we hear the song For the Joy of Life? Oh, yay. Thank you.
For the joy of life on earth, woven through with patience birth, praise our God who gives us breath, and fulfills will sing and rest in you.
Debbie, thanks again. For that particular song, I was challenged by a friend of mine who is also a choir director that I could write an optional descant for just the last line. And so in my PDFs that you can get out of my Google Drive, there's a page that looks like this with like a one-line descant there. I didn't put it in the music. And the reason I didn't is that I don't want anybody to feel bad. Like the whole point of doing this kind of music with limited ranges is that it's enough. People can feel like they're doing something good and they're not the also rans. And so that extra descant, if your choir is doing well and you have somebody who can, you know, really comfortably do a beautiful F for you, that page is there for them. But, you know, make your choir decision first. And that's kind of how I feel about a lot of the, I once was told by a publisher that he felt sorry for people who direct unauditioned choirs. And I thought that was really interesting because I think that unauditioned choirs are the majority. I deeply respect wonderful artistry. I love to hear a fabulous choir. I love to hear voices that are accurate and error-free and whose skills are at their peak. But there's an awful lot of volunteer singers out here, and especially in the church. And I think that we want to make room for those singers. I have a song with words by Dan Damon. It's the hymn text, which he wrote quite a long time ago, Living Christ, Bring Us Hope, which is good for Advent and Christmas. It's good for Easter. And he allowed me to insert a little bridge line in the middle. So I talked to him about the words and I got his permission, and a little tag on the end. So the text isn't really changed. There's just that one little thing in there. This is one of the two songs in this collection of songs that you would have to contact the publisher of the text and get a print license for. And if anybody wants to email me about that process, I'm completely happy to tell you about it. There's also information. I have to laugh because my husband, who is smart about a lot of things, just said, Jane, they're not going to read the email. So I'm just telling you, when you eventually get the email with my my letter, you're going to see that I did this thing with highlighter. That's to tell you if something needs to be reported as copyright, because otherwise my songs don't. Okay, so just hoping that you'll notice that and hoping that you'll enjoy this song. This one's a little more complicated. For my own choir, it would take a lot of work to do the contrapuntal bit in the middle, but they would feel like they had done something to do that part. So, Sartu, could we hear it? Living Christ, bring us hope.
Living Christ, bring us hope, hope for every nation. Living Christ, bring us hope, hope for all creation. Living Christ, bring us peace, peace with God and neighbor. love for every stranger. Living Christ, bring us love, love from cross and manger. You bring hope, you bring peace, you bring joy, bring love, you bring hope, you bring peace, you bring joy, bring love, love. You bring love, living Christ born in us. We will tell your story. Living Christ born in us. We will show your glory. We will tell your story. We will show your glory.
Okay, so one of the things that a church choir does, at least what I remember us doing, is going over the hymns for Sundays. And if you think of what we've been doing being at home for the past couple of years, I can pretty much guarantee that, whoops, there it is, we have not been standing like this at home. You know, we just haven't been doing it. So if you are rehearsing the hymns with your choir, one thing to consider is kind of the stamina issue. In a church service, you sing a hymn and then probably you get to sit. But if you're going to be rehearsing 3 or 4 hymns in a row in a choir rehearsal and you're going to be holding your book up, let them have a break in between. I was thinking about this with my choir, not so much for hymn books, but because we work toward a concert. And we have these nice, pretty black folders. They're kind of weighty and they'll hold a whole concert's worth of music with those nice elastic things that hold it in. But if you're used to holding a piece of paper and then you hold that thing, whoops, my computer didn't like me doing that, then, you know, you have to get used to, here I am, I'm upright, I'm in that good, full singing position. I have room to breathe, and my music is where I can see it and see my director. And so I just want to encourage you to think a little bit like your choir when you're rehearsing them. Sitting at home, having a cup of tea on the couch with on-screen church is not the same at all as what our choirs have come back to doing in the congregation. And so we might all need a little bit of time to work back to our full attention span, our full ability to look like a choir, our full ability to, you know, hold the book nicely. And if you see this happening, then it's probably time for a shoulder break. It's probably time for even a focal distance thing. So, you know, to change your focal distance, look up in the corner, see if there's a butterfly up there, anything interesting. Let's look over there and, oh, good, there's no spider webs. And just like let your face, let your eyes relax, let that change happen. I would like to share a song with you now that is actually a hymn. It's from a little book of mine here called Flowing Spirit, and it's on one license. At least, no, let me rephrase that. You can report the use of it on one license, but I think you've been sent the PDF. And so this is called Flowing Spirit. Our Pentecost is coming really soon. And if you're like some of the Ontario people, we just haven't been back very long, and it might not be long enough to have a lot of anthem material ready for Pentecost. This is a fairly simple, it's a unison hymn with, on the second page, a round. And it has the benefit of being unfamiliar. So I'm sort of back to my my idea that I would rather do something new rather than something familiar but not do it well. And so if we could have Flowing Spirit, Sartu, and this recording is actually my family. So
as craggy rocks sculpted by water lose their sharp edges, take on mystery. Flowing Spirit, make us pleasing to your eyes. As forest trees, some misty mornings all blend together, bright dark harmony. Rising Spirit, make us pleasing to your eyes. Through every crevice of our lives, as dusty fields freshened by spring storms, bursting with color, reaching for the sky. Rushing Spirit, make us pleasing to your eyes. Rush through every crevice of our lives. Rush through every crevice of our lives.
So, I guess I just wanted to suggest that because your congregation could join in easily on the flow part, or they could sing the other part and the choir could do the round. There are a lot of things that you could do with it in a simple way. I think that while we are working on regaining our skills, probably a disproportionate amount of our choir rehearsal time is going to be built on things like range exercises or breathing exercises. And with that in mind, you might not have as much rehearsal time for repertoire. And we don't get, I'm not sure how many people practice choir music at home. Some people do, some people don't. Some people look at the words, some people forget where they put it. So, our rehearsal time, especially for church choirs, tends not to be very long. And when you put the hymns in, and especially if you're working on a special anthem that might take more work, you need some things that are short. I have a little hymn, well, a choir song, that is called Hope is a Seed. This is from a few years back, and it's a 3-part rather than 4-part song. Oh, hi, Leanne. That's a nice comment. So what we have in this particular song, Hope is a Seed, is a text from Mary Louise Bringle. And when I was writing it, what I wanted was something that non-readers, children, and maybe people who couldn't see the page anymore could join into. And so my idea for this particular choir piece was that the second verse would be an echo, something like what happened with that flow part of Flowing Spirit. And so Mel Bringle wrote these beautiful words about hope that I think are very timely. And it's a choir piece from GIA, but they also have the melody only hymn version of it on one license. And you can do this whole song as an echo. And if you were going to do that, I would have your choir in 2 pieces and have the congregation feel that their voices were with them. But Sartu, could we go to the video from GIA for Hope is a Seed? Thank you.
Is a seed in the silent ground, embedded deep, darkness all around, but then it sprouts, reaching toward the sky, in the light of God, in the light of God.
Hope is a bird that is fledging afraid to leave for endless behind. It spreads its wings and begins to fly on the breath of God, on the breath of God. Hope is a dream of a world at peace, of hungers fed and of captives freed, a song of joy bursting from the star. It's a dream of God. It's a dream of God.
So if we just take a quick look at the 1-page PDF, then I'm just going to sing. I know we won't hear each other. You're going to be stuck with me. But I want you to try just doing it as the round. And or don't. Go have a cup of tea because I won't know. But so oh good. Thank you, Sartu. I'm so grateful that I'm not the person putting that stuff up. Okay, so you're going to go after me. So hope is a seed in the silent ground, embedded deep, darkness all around. But then it sprouts, reaching for the sky. Oh, hello. In the light of God, in the light of God. So I hope you were trying that, but that's not hard to do. And children can understand the ideas in this song. I had a good email conversation with Mel about this before we did it, and it doesn't say anywhere on the printed choir music that that was my intention, but it was intended for everybody to be able to join in on that second verse, whether or not they could read it. And I love the idea of doing the whole thing just as people. And I mean, if you want to put an accompaniment in there, go for it. But I'm happy with however you do this. So before we do any more music, I want to mention, oh, you guys are putting such nice things in the chats. Wow. Thank you. I've been enjoying this new book, which is called Choral Reflections. Sorry, it's backwards on my thing here. It's from Hal Leonard, edited by Brandon Williams, and it's a very, very recent book in which many choir directors were interviewed, and they were asked the same set of questions. And I just want to recommend it because the thinking in it is very, very beautiful. The questions start like this. What are the main objectives of your choral program or your ensemble? And how do you create a sense of community in your ensemble? So to me, that's like we're at a time of reset right now. We haven't had our normal routine. This is a really good time for us to look at what we do in our choir and what we do in our congregation. How are we creating community? How does our choir feel about what they do? And just really let there be something refreshing and something new in how we come at that. And it goes on to ask questions. What do you value when you select music and programming? And how do you prepare? And it goes on to talk about conductors and professing, like advice as professionals. But what I really have enjoyed is all these different, quite illustrious conductors, starting with Hilary Apfelstadt and then working through a lot of American choral directors, is that they all have such a respect for their singers, and they have a clear idea what they want to do and how they want to get there. I think in our church choirs, we have a little bit less flexibility with maybe who we're working with, but we have beautiful people who want to sing. And I think that as we look at how we make our church choirs feel like community and how we look at our purpose, you could think about the culture of your choir. My own choir, which is a community choir, partly exists because there are a lot of churches here on the island that are too small to have choirs. And so I get the double blessing of people from all over with different backgrounds. And I have a bunch of clergy singing in my choir some years, which is kind of fun because they don't often get to sing choir music in their home churches. We always, unless somebody forgets, we have jokes. So I've really loved it that these two sessions, yesterday and today, have begun with humor. I have had on occasion to just say, next week the sopranos are bringing a joke, the week after it's the basses. On some occasions, I don't have to. And since people have discovered that they can go to Google on their phones, now we don't have those awful moments when there is no joke where we want a joke. My choir likes to celebrate birthdays. My choir does some other things that are very community oriented. Once a year, there is a special service that we've missed that the local funeral home has, in which all the people who have passed away during the year are remembered. And my choir goes and takes 2 or 3 of the sacred pieces that we've learned and also sings a hymn or two. And there's usually a native drummer, and there are candles lit for the remembrance of all the people who've passed away. And not everybody in my choir will go to that, but a large chunk will. And that's been a really interesting part of my choir being useful to the community. So I offer those ideas just as what we do. You are the experts on what your community needs, what your community does, and you know who you have. So I'm hoping that as we go forward as musicians and as choir people and as singers, we all can look at where we've been and, value all the traditions and the strengths and the good that was in our choirs and in our churches before COVID, and the incredible creativity and work that people have done to get through up till now. And as we go forward, and hopefully one day out of this COVID wilderness, hopefully we will have song in our mouth and joy and laughter and all of the goodness that comes from being able to function as the way we want our choirs to be. I have a little benediction, which is called Go with the Strength You Have. The original words of this come from a resource book that is, whoops, I'm dropping it. There. It's from this Open Publisher Press, edited by Terry Falla, called Be Our Freedom, Lord. And so there's permission to use these words as long as it's not for money, which it isn't. So this song has a repeated tune in it, which can be either set as a harmony or a round. And the words are sort of derived from the little portion of Judges where God is sending Gideon out and Gideon doesn't feel like he can. And in the context of the story, there's this whole, destroying the altars of Baal and saving Israel. But it's this reassurance that you go with the strength you have. Go with what you have. And that's enough. And the rest of the prayer is written by this person from Australia named Kiamu Kawadrone. I hope I'm saying it right. Go with the strength you have. Go simply, lightly, gently in search of love, and the Spirit go with you. So we're ready to see this, I think, and to hear it. Thank you so much.
Go with the strength you have. Go simply, lightly, gently, in search of love, and the Spirit go with you.
So once again, thank you, Debbie, for providing that recording. I just so grateful. Um, I'm wondering, we have a few minutes left, and um, the first song that we did at the beginning, our voices have been silent for too long. We have a video of Mark Runke's church singing it as a hymn with his trio doing a little improv in the middle. But before we play that, I'm just wondering, I know that there's time in the schedule. Does anybody have a comment, or if you have a question, maybe one of us can answer it? But Debbie, do you want to shepherd us through that, or who's in charge of how people talk to each other on this thing?
I think what we'll do is people can raise their hand like we did yesterday, if you're able to do that. So on my screen, I have reactions down at the bottom, and you can just raise your hand, and then we can see. Let's go from there, or you can type in the chat. Hey, the reaction thing's not working for me, and I see Lynn has her hand up.
Oh, hi, Lynn.
Hi, Jane. That was great. Thank you very much. Some lovely pieces you've got there. From
Thank you.
I'm thinking about all of them and where I can find them. But one thing I really appreciated was the emphasis on returning to trying to regain the skills. And I don't know if folks are aware, but Vicki Meredith wrote a book called Sing Better as You Age. It was
Mm-hmm.
originally published by Jose Music and is now from Santa Barbara Publishing, but you can find it on Sheet Music Plus.
Excellent. Yeah, I really like that book. I wish that she had some recordings with it. But yeah, okay. Is there anyone else? Lynn, I can't hear you. You're still talking, but I don't hear you.
I was muted, sorry. It's fine.
Okay.
It's Kim here. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to see you. And Jane, my friend, it was everything I expected and more. Such a beautiful gift. All your songs. I'd like to know, do you have a website where your resources are all listed and how we get in touch? All that?
Well, I have a website, but it seriously needs updating. So if you contact me through my website or through my email, I can tell you about the songbook or my CDs. But all the music that we did PDFs for today, and actually more, because I've done about 20 pieces of music for returning choirs. They're all right now in my Google Drive, and we're going to give you a PDF letter with those links. So, yeah. So the only thing is, there's the one song with Dan Damon's words, and there's another one, a different one by Fred Kreider called Extravagance instead. And those two, you would have to get a print license from the publisher for the choir music. But everything else is yours. So I just really hope that people will find a way back into full singing. And this is my part of the how we get there.
Um, I wanted to say I make a priority in my music ministry to celebrate and honor the work of our Canadian composers. We are so rich in resources. And so I am grateful for that. And I am grateful for you and the many people who are here that contribute so much to our music ministry. I'm not a composer, and it is a specific gift. And thank you, my friend. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Byron.
Yes, hello. Sorry, my video is not working, but um, yeah, this is fantastic. And of course, we have the concern of bringing our voices back for the congregation as well.
Mm-hmm.
And see, a lot of this material that can be used, can be adapted for
Mm-hmm.
just getting the congregation happier, feeling okay about singing again.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are a little bit, you don't want to have like a choral tech thing for your for your congregation, but making having music that they can feel comfortable with and is easily in their range, and looking forward to using some of this material for trying to help congregations find their voices again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's an important point. Depending on what stage of coming back we are, some of us have kind of said, well, our congregations can sing softly masked. Well, if you're singing softly masked, you are not going to hear any high notes because it takes push for those high notes, eh? So we do have to select for our congregation things that are actually humanly possible. So hopefully that's a, oh, I apologize. That's my landline. Should only ring one more time. But yeah, bringing our congregations back and hopefully having them feel included and happy. A couple of the songs that we haven't done have congregation responses in them or little one-liners. And in the first set that I did, which I shared with some of my friends at the end of the summertime, there are some little liturgical bits and pieces. Again, not because there aren't zillions out there. There's wonderful real music out there that people can do. But you don't want to take a favorite and not have the range for it or the breath. And so these things have been crafted to have shorter breaths and shorter ranges. And then hallelujah, celebrate when you can get back to doing your favorites. So is there one or two more people who want to say something, or should we just go to Mark's video? Debbie, what do you think?
I don't see any other hands at the moment, so people can we'll do the video, and if there's any quick comments after that.
Okay, great. Well, listen, I want to say thank you. When 30 people give you an hour and a half, that is an entire work week. That's a huge chunk of time. So thank you for your listening. Thank you for being part of this group of people who loves the church and loves the song of the church. And maybe before we go into the song, roll your shoulders again, pretend you're at choir, give your neck a break. And then if you want to sing along with it, the words are going to be on Mark's thing on the screen that he uses for his congregation, and nobody will hear you. So be happy.
Just listening in worship, the soul.
Well, thank you, folks.
Jane, I want to say thank you so much for a wonderful workshop. I'm sure Karen has some kind of scripted thing planned or something planned, but I really I wanted to say thank you for sharing this and for all of the work and effort of your wonderful music that you have so generously shared for us to use in our churches. And it's really appreciated. And I know my choir has already started on using some of
Oh, yay.
your music, and they love it. And I highly recommend it to everybody here. And thank you so very, very much.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jane. I'm the one tasked with saying thank you to you in Karen's place, and I also want to express my gratitude and the gratitude of the Music Matters Music United team, not only for sharing your gifts of music, but for inviting us to think pastorally about what this means. It's a really important and powerful piece of this return, not only celebrating coming back, but also lamenting and struggling with the challenges of it. And you really brought us to that awareness and to that place of being.